morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are right now. It is Tuesday, February 24th, 2026. And I want you to just look out your window for a second.
Unless you're driving right now, of course.
Right, yes. Please keep your eyes on the road if you're driving.
Okay.
But if you can look out a window and you're seeing the usual parade of Teslas and Volkswagens going by, take a mental picture. Because today we are talking about a shift that is fundamentally going to change the color of that traffic.
It really is a pivot point. We're not just looking at a couple of new car models hitting the lot. We are looking at a full-on collision of philosophies. It's East meets West in a very literal and very expensive game of chicken.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are doing a deep dive into a showdown that, honestly, I didn't think would happen this fast. So in the blue corner, we have the European icon reinvented.
Yeah.
The Fiat Grande Panda EV.
A classic.
Right. And in the red corner, the Indian juggernaut that is finally officially trying to conquer the Western market. The Tata Tiago EV.
And to be clear to you listening, this isn't just a basic car review. We're not just comparing 0 to 60 times here. We are here to understand why these two specific cars are fighting for your driveway right now.
Because it's not random.
No. It all goes back to that historic trade agreement signed just last month, January 2026. That piece of paper is the entire reason we're even having this conversation.
We are going to unpack all of that. The hardware, the geopolitics, and of course the math that determines the actual price tag you see at the dealership. But let's start with the metal, because looking at the source photos for this deep dive, these two cars could not be more different.
Oh, they are night and day. Let's start with the home team, the Fiat Grande Panda. Visually, this thing is making a massive statement. It's positioning itself as a mini SUV. It's about 3.99 meters long.
Which is pretty compact.
Very compact, but it's the design language that grabs you right away. It's this incredibly muscular, almost pixelated homage to the 1980s Panda.
I love that description. Pixelated. It really looks like someone took the original boxy Panda from the 80s and just put it through a low-poly video game filter.
Yeah, exactly like an 8-bit retro vibe.
It's got these sharp, confident lines.
Yeah.
It's retro, but it doesn't feel old at all.
Right. It's definitely trying to be the cool kid on the block. It rides a bit higher. It has those rugged wheel arches. It screams lifestyle vehicle.
Okay, and then you pivot to the Tata Tiago.
Right. Now, this is a car designed with a completely different mission statement.
It looks sensible, I guess is the word.
Sensible is a very polite way to put it. I tend to call it concrete pragmatism.
Concrete pragmatism.
Yeah, it's a classic city hatchback. It's significantly shorter at just 3.7 meters. And it is not trying to turn heads in Milan or Paris. That wasn't the goal.
What was the goal then?
Survival. It was designed to act like a ferret in traffic to survive the absolute chaos of Mumbai and Delhi. It's narrower, it's taller, and it's built to squeeze into impossible parking spots in Asian megalopolises.
So we have the style icon versus the urban survivor. Exactly.
Let's get into the guts of these things then. The hardware. Because I was looking at the battery specs in our research, and there's an acronym here I want to unpack. The Fiat uses an LFP battery.
Right. Lithium iron phosphate. Now, this is a crucial detail for anyone looking at EVs right now. For a long time, European cars really stuck to NMC batteries, nickel, manganese, cobalt.
Because they pack more punch, right?
Yeah, they are lighter and they have a higher energy density. But Fiat deliberately went with LFP for the Grande Panda.
Why do that if it's heavier? Isn't weight the enemy of an electric vehicle?
It is a trade-off. Think of LFP batteries as the cast iron skillets of the EV world.
Okay. Heavy but indestructible.
Precisely. They are incredibly durable. You can charge an LFP battery to 100% every single day without severely degrading the battery life over time. They're also much safer regarding thermal runaways, and they're significantly cheaper to manufacture.
So even though the Fiat is carrying a bit more weight, that 44 kilowatt-hour battery gives it a WLTP range of, roughly 320 kilometers? Around 320, yes, which is a very solid number.
Right, that's your daily commute, the gym, the grocery run, and probably the rest of the week without even thinking about plugging in.
Exactly. It covers the bases. Now look at the Tata. It is working with a much smaller battery, 24 kilowatt hours.
Half the size, basically.
Just about.
Yeah.
And the range estimates here are where things get a little tricky.
Yeah, because I saw some headlines coming out of India claiming that Tiago does over 300 kilometers.
You really have to read the fine print on those. That number is based on the Indian MIDC testing cycle.
And I'm guessing that's not the same as the European WLTP standard?
Not at all. That testing cycle is, well, let's be charitable and say it's very optimistic.
Optimistic how?
It assumes very low speeds, lots of coasting, absolutely no heating, and no AC blasting.
Right, which is not reality for most drivers here.
Exactly. In the real world of European driving, you're looking at maybe 250 kilometers, tops.
Okay, so the Fiat definitely has better legs. But I want to touch on something we usually ignore in these spec sheet comparisons, the suspension. You mentioned earlier the Tata is built for Mumbai. Does that mean it drives like a rigid tank?
Actually, it means the exact opposite. Indian roads can be incredibly unforgiving. You're dealing with deep potholes and speed bumps that literally feel like small mountains.
Right.
So the Tiago is tuned to be incredibly soft. It absorbs everything. And honestly, in a European city with lots of cobblestones, that's actually really nice.
So it's like driving on a marshmallow.
A bit, yes. But there's a major trade-off, and that's body roll. If you take that super soft suspension onto a winding Italian country road at 80 kilometers an hour, it's going to lean. It's going to feel a bit like a boat.
And the Fiat?
Being European, it's tuned much stiffer, it's sharper in the corners, feels far more planted on the highway, but you will definitely feel those cobblestones more.
So Tata for comfort in the urban chaos, and Fiat for actual driving dynamics.
Precisely. And while we're on the topic of design philosophy, we have to talk about the quirk factor in the interior. Because Fiat has done something with the charging cable that I honestly think should be legally mandatory on every EV from now on.
Oh, you mean the spiral cable?
Yes. It's brilliant. Instead of having this dirty, wet cable tangling up your precious trunk space, the Fiat has a spiral cable integrated right into the front grille, the calandra.
You pull it out like a vacuum cleaner cord.
Exactly like an old vacuum. You pull it out, plug it in, and when you're done, it just retracts itself.
That is just, it's so incredibly smart. It solves a problem I didn't even realize I hated until I read about it.
Yeah.
Wrestling with wet cables in the rain is just the worst part of owning an EV.
It's those exact quality of life touches that Fiat is betting heavily on. The Tata, by comparison, is purely utilitarian. The interior plastics are harder. The design is very simple. I mean, it has a screen, it has Apple CarPlay, it works. But it feels like an appliance. It's a very robust toaster, but at the end of the day, it is a toaster.
Okay, so the Fiat wins on style, on range, and clearly on clever engineering details. But here is where I really need to play devil's advocate with you.
Go for it.
We need to talk about charging speed. Because looking at our notes, you flagged this as the absolute deal breaker between these two cars.
Okay.
I'm not sure I fully buy it yet.
Hear me out on this because it is the single biggest technical difference between these two machines. The Fiat charges at 100 kilowatts DC.
Okay.
That means getting from 20% to 80% takes about 30 minutes. It's a standard coffee and bathroom break on the highway.
Pretty standard stuff for modern EVs, yeah.
Now, the Tata Tiago charges at roughly 25 kilowatts DC.
Oh, that's a big drop.
It's massive. To get that same 20 to 80% charge, you're waiting 58 minutes. Basically an entire hour.
Okay, it's slow. Very slow. But here's my pushback. If I am buying a budget city car, I am probably plugging it in at home while I sleep. Or I'm plugging it in at the office parking lot for 8 hours straight.
Right.
So why does DC fast charging even matter if I am literally never taking this thing on a road trip?
And that is a very fair point for you specifically if you happen to have a private driveway with a charger. But think about the broader market and think about resale value 3 years from now.
Okay.
A car that functionally cannot do a road trip is a rapidly depreciating asset. Life happens. If you suddenly need to drive from Milan to Rome in an emergency, the Fiat can do it. The Tata turns that exact same trip into a 2-day ordeal.
I see what you mean. So the Tata is strictly geographically tethered to your home city. It's a second car.
It is. It limits the potential buyer pool significantly. And frankly, that limitation shows up in the everyday practicality, too. Look at the trunk space.
Where the Fiat gives you, what, 361 liters?
Yes. 361, that's a week of groceries, a stroller, maybe a small suitcase for a weekend away. The Tata is 240 liters.
Which holds what exactly?
A backpack and a prayer, honestly. It's very tight.
All right, so strictly on hardware, the Fiat is the much more versatile machine. But we aren't just comparing these cars in a vacuum. We have to talk about why the Tata is even here. Why are we suddenly seeing Indian number plates in our collective European imagination?
This is where we hit the geopolitical game changer.
Segment 2, the EU-India Free Trade Agreement. Now, remember the headlines back in January, but break it down for us. Why did this deal even need to happen?
To understand that, you have to look at the massive elephant in the room, and that is China.
Right.
For the last 5 years, Chinese EVs have been flooding the global market at prices nobody else could match. Europe got genuinely terrified for its own legacy auto industry and slapped massive defensive tariffs on them.
The Fortress Europe strategy.
Exactly, trying to protect home turf. But that created an immediate problem. Europe still urgently needs affordable EVs to meet its own aggressive green climate goals.
And European manufacturers just struggle to build cheap cars profitably.
They do. The labor costs, the regulations, is too expensive. Enter India.
So the enemy of my enemy is my friend. We lock out China and invite India in.
In a nutshell, yes. The deal signed this January changed everything overnight. Before this agreement, India had astronomical import duties on cars, sometimes up to 110%.
Wow. So it was effectively a wall.
A massive wall. If Fiat tried to sell a car in India, the tax literally doubled the price. Nobody bought them.
And now, post-January.
The wall has crumbled. Under the new terms for India exporting to the EU, Tata now gets to ship cars here at zero duty.
Zero. Completely duty-free. That seems incredibly generous for Europe to offer.
It is, but it's a strategic quota. They can send up to 625,000 units duty-free. That is a massive opening for Tata.
And what does Europe get in return?
The EU gets to send European-made cars to India with a drastically reduced duty of just 10%, down from that 110%.
Okay.
That's for a quota of 250,000 vehicles, specifically favoring cars priced over 15,000 euros.
Okay, so the doors are wide open on both sides.
Yeah.
But you mentioned earlier in our research that you can't just take a Tata Tiago, put it on a boat in Mumbai, and sell it directly in Berlin. There is the EU-ready hurdle.
Right, and this is exactly where the gritty engineering reality hits the lofty political dream. The automotive safety standards in Europe are arguably the strictest in the world.
So the Indian Tiago doesn't pass.
Well, the Indian version has a 4-star global NCAPP rating, which is actually very good for that specific market. But Euro NCAP is an entirely different beast.
What specifically do they have to physically change on the car?
Almost everything under the skin. They need to add significantly more airbags, side curtains, center airbags between the front seats. They need to completely reinforce the chassis for different types of high-speed impact tests.
That sounds heavy.
Heavy and expensive. And the big one is ADS, Advanced Driver Assistance Systems.
Right, the computer stuff.
Yeah, automatic emergency braking lane, keeping assist driver, fatigue monitoring. You legally cannot sell a new car in Europe without these systems active.
And none of those sensors are cheap.
Sensors, microchips, software integration testing, it all adds up fast.
Which leads us perfectly to the moment of truth for you listening.
Yeah.
The price crunch. Because I know everyone is thinking, okay, but if the Tata is cheap enough, I really don't care about the slow charging or the tiny trunk.
So let's do the math. And I want to walk through this step by step because this is where the real aha moment happens.
Let's build the receipt right now. In India, the Tiago starts at roughly a 10,000 euro equivalent, right?
Right, 10,000. Now add that EU-ready package we just talked about. The airbags, the sensors, the structural steel, that alone adds roughly 5,500 euros to the cost.
Okay, so our base price instantly jumps to 15,500. That's already a 50% price hike.
Then you have to physically ship the thing. Logistics, marine insurance, getting it off the boat at the port. That's conservatively another 1,000 euros per car.
So we're at 16,500.
Now, even with a free trade agreement in place, there are always administrative duties, local landing fees, and residual taxes to process the imports. Our sources estimate that at about 1,550 euros.
Bringing our subtotal to 18,050 euros.
And finally, the tax man always comes for his cut. Value-added tax, or VAT, let's average it at 22% across the major European markets. That is nearly 4,000 euros piled on top.
So the 10,000 euro budget car from India is actually...
roughly 22,000 euros by the time it has European plates on it.
22,000. That is, honestly, that's way higher than I expected when we started looking into this.
And here is the real problem for Tata. The Fiat Grande Panda EV, a car made by a local brand with a bigger battery, substantially faster charging, and a much bigger trunk, starts at approximately 24,000 euros.
Wait, so we're talking about a 2,000 euro difference.
That is what I call the danger zone.
Yeah.
If you are standing in a dealership right now, are you really going to save just 2,000 euros to get a car with half the charging speed, less power?
75 horsepower versus, what, 113 in the Fiat?
Exactly. And a much smaller dealer network for servicing.
I mean, no. Most people would just finance the extra 2 grand. It's like, what, 40 euros a month on a lease? For a car that can actually drive on the highway without panic attacks,
Yeah.
it seems like an absolute no-brainer for the Fiat.
It really does. And this is a big, unless Tata decides to pull the lever,
What lever?
the city spec lever. The math we just did together was for the 24 kilowatt hour battery, but Tata already manufactures a smaller version in India, a 19 kilowatt hour battery.
19. That is tiny. That's barely a golf cart.
It is incredibly small, yes, but for a pure inner city hopper, it works. If they bring that specific version through customs, they could potentially drop the European retail price below 19,000 euros.
Okay, well, now we're talking. Sub 19K, that suddenly creates a 5,000 euro gap between the Tata and the Fiat.
Exactly. 2,000 euros isn't enough to make a consumer compromise on fast charging, but 5,000,
Yep.
that pays for a lot of weekend rental cars if you need to go on a long trip. That pays for a lot of Uber rides in the rain,
So at 19,000, the Tata suddenly becomes the king of the second cars.
without a doubt.
So let's profile these buyers to wrap this up. Let's look at the listener and figure out who they are in this market.
Well, if you are the target Tata buyer, you are likely pragmatic to a fault. You probably already own a primary vehicle, maybe a diesel station wagon for the long family holidays.
Right.
You just need a tool, a cheap, reliable tool to get to work, drop the kids at school, and get groceries. You have a garage with a plug. You don't care about turning heads. You care entirely about the bottom line.
And the Fiat buyer.
The Fiat buyer is likely a young professional or a young couple. This might actually be their only car. They need it to do absolutely everything.
The Swiss Army knife approach.
Right. They need to drive to the mountains on a Friday night without infinite charging anxiety. They want the car to look good parked in front of a cafe. They need that versatility because they don't have a backup vehicle in the driveway.
It seems like Fiat really has the home field advantage here in Europe.
Mhm.
But what about the reverse scenario? Because you said the treaty works both ways. Is Fiat going to invade the Indian market now?
This is a fascinating subplot. In India, Tata currently holds a massive 70% market share of EVs. They are the Goliath over there. Fiat is simply not going to beat them on pure price.
But with the import duties dropping to 10% for premium cars.
Exactly. Fiat can now export the Panda and position it as a luxury urban boutique product in places like Mumbai or Bangalore.
Or, and I'm just looking at the Stellantis corporate structure here.
Or they bypass the shipping boats entirely. Stellantis is already building the Citroën EC3 locally in India. The Grande Panda actually sits on the exact same smart car platform, so they could just start building the Panda right there in Chennai.
A locally built Italian-style icon fighting the Indian giant on its own home turf. That would be a seriously fun rematch to watch unfold.
It would be a total brawl.
So before we wrap this up, there was one last detail you mentioned in our pre-show notes. A tiny little clause in the trade agreement that suggests this fierce rivalry might actually turn into a disguised romance.
Oh, the Frankenstein clause. I absolutely love this detail. We're sitting here looking at them as bitter competitors, Fiat versus Tata. But the 2026 agreement includes a phased elimination of duties on vehicle components.
Components like batteries and motors?
Batteries, motors, inverters, everything.
Meaning what exactly for the consumer?
Meaning that in 5 to 10 years, those specific tariffs drop all the way to zero, and the global auto industry is notoriously ruthless about cutting costs.
Right. Margins are razor thin.
So we might very well see a near future where a Tata vehicle is driving around the streets of Europe powered by a highly efficient Fiat electric motor.
Wow.
Or a stylish Fiat Panda is utilizing a cheap, incredibly durable Tata-manufactured battery pack underneath.
So today, they are fighting tooth and nail for the same parking spot. But tomorrow, they might literally be sharing body parts.
It happens all the time in tech. Your smartphone has parts from Samsung and Apple's suppliers mixed together. Cars are really no different anymore. The fierce competition today could very easily become the quiet collaboration of tomorrow, just to keep costs down and fend off well other competitors.
That is a wild thought to leave on. You buy a sleek Italian Fiat, you pop the hood and it says made by Tata.
Or vice versa. The market is completely blending.
Well, there you have it. The battle for the urban streets of 2026 isn't just about 0 to 60 times or battery size. It is about global trade deals, pixelated design versus concrete utility, and whether you are ultimately willing to pay 2,000 euros for a faster charge.
Always check the fine print, and always definitely check the DC charging speed.
Thanks for diving in with us today. We'll catch you on the next one.